Steve, it's so awesome to see you again. Thank you for taking time for this. Looking forward to our chat. For listeners who don't know you yet that well, can you say a few words about where you are and a little bit about your background?
Sure, sure. Um, so a little bit about my background. I'm from Southern Indiana and grew up in a great town with great education, great parents, a lot of things that shaped kind of the beginning of the kind of person that I would later become. Went
Mm-hmm.
into the military. I went into the U.S. Air Force, and I was a nuclear weapons specialist. And while that job came with a very low margin for error, it also came with a very high clearance level, and that was always interesting to learn about all the different people they went and interviewed in order to make sure that I was at least trusted enough to be able to touch nuclear weapons, right? But the takeaway from that was that experience instilled in me kind of a deep respect for precision because we had checklists for everything. Accountability, especially as you moved through your certification process and you became a team leader and you were working on an actual nuclear warhead. Accountability was key,
Mm-hmm.
and really importantly, mission-driven work. And when the war started, because I was in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, I was quite enamored and impressed by the camaraderie and just the absolute focus. We worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, no days off in preparation. And everybody rolled up their sleeves and really dove in. And that camaraderie and that muscle memory was just amazing. And then from there, I came back home. I moved into IT, corporate IT, working for a small Midwestern accounting firm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in 1999, 2000 timeframe, I moved up to Cincinnati and got into consulting. And that's where I did ethical hacking, an IT audit, and I was teaching people how to not only do hacking, but how to remediate and fix the problems that existed. So I
Mm-hmm.
used to sit in a room and put up a projector, and I would just show them exactly how I broke into their organization. Um, but I realized pretty quickly during that period of time that it had not as much to do about technology and more about people and trust and helping them understand to protect what matters most. And over the years, I've gone into just about every vertical that's out there. So we got healthcare, financial services, energy, retail. I was never afraid of any of that because to me, the fundamentals were always the same. And the
Mm-hmm.
goal was always making security practical and human centered and quietly powerful, especially when it needed to scale. Um, I believe in servant leadership. Just a little bit about myself, and that means I'm not the smartest person in the room, nor am I trying to be, but I am trying to be the most helpful. Um, and I need to build a room where, especially as a leader, the entire team can thrive. And then on occasion, I find that most of the folks that are in a security program don't understand their strengths and weaknesses. And so they
Mm-hmm.
feel a bit misguided. And burnout is very real, by the way. And so it's important as a leader to make sure that you help the team understand what they're good at, what they're not good at, individually as well as collectively.
Mm-hmm.
Always invest in them and their ability to keep their skills sharp. Make sure you give plenty of space for what we call psychological safety, which is their ability to speak up. And more importantly, watch the mental health because this job can be very stressful, very thankless, I should say, not thankful. Um, and with the amount of risk and threats that come at us daily, a very difficult one.
It's interesting. It's certainly true. Well, we think of Athenia as a community of cybersecurity superheroes fighting cybercrime. Well,
Mm.
it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but also for a lot of people, it rings true because you fight crime in the dark and no one knows who you are. So and sometimes it feels like a superhuman effort, and it's also very stressful. So part of the reason we actually to take to take us back a few years, the reason we started this podcast, we want to interview Athenia members because we realized that often when an organization is doing well, it's rarely the CISO who gets the credit. It's usually the CEO, the president, chairman of the board, VP of sales, chief marketing officer. They're the ones who get the pat on the shoulder. It's only when things go sideways then all eyes on you. And we thought it's totally unfair. And a big reason why we started this series of interviews is just we want to create the space and the stage for our members to tell their story because it's only fair. Still, but it's very interesting. So from military to IT to cybersecurity, you have a very interesting path.
Hmm.
And you had roles of increasing responsibility along the way: deputy CISO, tractor supply, CISO, Hyundai Financial Services. And so it's very impressive career, and obviously you have a lot of experience along the way. From the vantage point of where you are right now, what would be your advice for someone who's maybe a little bit more junior, maybe a SOC analyst, have dreams of becoming a CISO one day, or maybe someone in technology, as you were a few years back, looking to make this transition to cybersecurity, or maybe even further upstream? So someone who is still in college, looking at the field, ever growing, ever changing, trying to figure out if that's somewhere they want to make a career out of. What would be your advice? What should they focus on? What are the 2, 3 things they should double down on?
Well, I was once asked, what's the secret to the success? And I would say there really isn't a secret. It's more along the lines of principles. For me, it was curiosity first. And I had a very strong work ethic as well. And so consistency mattered. And consistency in that frame meant showing up, eager to learn, always focused, especially in the military. It was mission focused, and that carries well over into the business world. Because we are a service to the business, we need to be able to meet them where they are and assist them as they develop and scale. Because if the business isn't making products and services, they're not making money and they don't need us. And then lastly, along with the curiosity, is lots of caffeine. Um, because, sometimes you really need that extra boost of energy. For me, when I got started in this career field, and again, coming from a blue collar family that were very poor when we started out, I always said yes to the hard things, and that was instilled by my parents and my family. The old adage was, if you're going to do it right the first time, and if you're not going to do it right the first time, get out of the way so I can. And that would be my father. My mother taught me servant leadership, even though that wasn't really coined a term back then. But it was more about making yourself available to support others, even regardless if you think you're in a poor station, there are others that are worse off than you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the takeaway from there is try to remain humble. This career field will absolutely destroy you if you try to bring ego into it. This is a team sport. It has to be a team sport. You can't know it all. It's impossible. I rely upon many people to help me in my career and in a team. So you got to stay curious. You got to like people. You got to treat them like people, like humans, and not like resources. And I think advice for newcomers would be: don't chase the title, chase the knowledge, chase the mastery. Be a sponge. Find mentors. Aphenia is full of successful people who have made it to the rank of CISO. Reach out, communicate, get connected. And lastly, it's your communication skills. Business folks, they respect clarity, not buzzwords. One of the secrets to success is being able to take something that's extremely difficult and complex and technical and
Mm-hmm.
create it or explain it in business terms, even using analogies, where the person across from you that has no idea what you do goes, aha, that makes sense.
Well, and it's interesting because a lot of people come up through the ranks based on their understanding of technology and just their grasp of cybersecurity as a technical field. But once they get to the point, director, VP, C level, where a lot of your success depends on how well you can, one, understand business, and two, tie cybersecurity programs to business outcomes. And to your point, being able to articulate and communicate that connection between cybersecurity, that it's not separate from the business, it's enabling business. It often becomes kind of an there's a learning curve to it. So to your point, that it's hugely important for success, especially at VPC level, when you're dealing not only with your bosses who may not be technical, but also with the board, also
Mm-hmm.
with functional heads across the organization, on whom you may be dependent, whether it's procurement or finance, or your budget is coming from. like CFO is the one who's signing up, and procurement is the one who's opining what vendors you're bringing. So it's certainly very important.
A point of reference, when you're in this career field, one of the most important things you can do is not to be a roadblock. Whatever it is that you're trying to do in terms of instituting security technology into a program or into a business, you want to make sure that you're baking that in and not bolting it on. DevSecOps is a great area. We talk about shifting left, but shifting left is doing it right. And so what that means is if you're a developer and you're in your IDE, the last thing you want to do is have to stop what you're doing and click, into some other program and copy and paste something and then wait for some output to tell you that you did something wrong without any real clear explanation of what it is that was found and even better, how to fix it. We have to be enablers of what we do, or the adoption will never happen. I can remember when ABS first came out in cars, and my parents would go, "Why in the world do I want the car to pulsate and the brake pedal?" Right? Because they were so used to, when I put the brake pedal to the floor, the car is going to skid, and then I'm controlling the skid. And there were even training classes on that. Like when I was in high school, we had driver's education, and they would teach us about that. But then ABS came out, and at first it was a little bit disruptive, and a lot of people pushed back. And I don't like this, right? But you give it a generation and a lot of education and even experience, like practicing doing that in the snow and what it feels like and how do you control your steer. Then all of a sudden, the adoption became second nature, and it wasn't that bad, only to be further threatened by airbags. And the list goes on, right? But
Yeah,
again, it's that little point, and you want that curve, to be kind of minimal, of getting through the confusion and the adoption and helping the human to get past that point so they can then continue to use it and it becomes natural in what they do, like driving a car.
certainly. Well, I think once you understand the why, you understand the intent, it helps you understand that it's not a block. It's an enabler, but it goes back to communication. You mentioned one thing which I think is very interesting. You mentioned curiosity as almost a prerequisite to a successful career. I think part of what attracts me to cybersecurity, it's that it never stands still. It's always changing. It's always moving. There is always new technology, new exploit, new social engineering attack, new regulation, new APT. I think it's partially due to the fact that technology is playing increasingly a bigger role at all levels: personal level, family level, corporate level, etc. So the bigger the role, the bigger the surface area for an attack. So it's always changing, always evolving. So with this in mind, obviously you're very plugged into everything cybersecurity. What is top of mind for CISOs now? What are the top 3 themes that everyone is thinking about right now?
Before I jump into the top 3 things, I want to pull on something that you just said, and that is the attack surface continuing to grow, right? Especially as the organization grows. And then we'll dive into the top 3. I wrote something a few years back when I was at Tractor Supply, and we were struggling with APIs at the time and non-human identities and how to protect exposed APIs and so on and so forth. And I wrote this down, and I'm going to read it for you. What I wrote was: the rapid expanse by business into the digitalization of products and services has translated into a rapid and often unmanaged proliferation of new attack surfaces that the security team must manage, monitor, and protect. APIs, because that was the topic at the time, are but one of many digital service methods that inherently possess weaknesses, which provide attack surfaces that can be exploited by an adversary. Without mature foundational processes for each of the 5 NIST CSF categories, which now there's 6, the attack vectors created from each digital asset, each of the new ones, will never fully be managed, monitored, or protected. In the mantra of people, process, and technology, people and technologies always change, but process is fundamental. And it hasn't changed even with the advent of artificial intelligence now. Artificial intelligence is going to help us. It will do a number of things in terms of supplementing the human. I hope at some point it even gets better than just supplementing us, that it becomes kind of our digital guardian and helps us to continue to provide protection in the environment. But some of the things that I see coming with the advent of agentic AI is you'll see things like detection and response will become hyper automated. And God knows we need it, because the adversaries are going to come after us with artificial intelligence as well. And you want kind of a digital agent to be your junior analyst that never sleeps, never eats, and doesn't complain about the ticket queues. Risk modeling and prediction will get better and even smarter. I'm doing advisory work now for some stealth companies, and they're producing products that will not only show you what your external attack surface looks like, but will do an automated pen test and show you exactly the path in which it would get in. And then we'll call that the red side. And then on the blue side, it would show you, okay, this is the path in which the adversary or the attacker would come through. This is what you have today that you would use in order to detect and respond, quarantine, and then eradicate. And so you can see actively where the risk is coming from and how the breach might occur, and then how to leverage what you have internally in order to mitigate it. And to me, I mean, that's better than a tabletop. That's something that's directly in front of your eyeballs that you can then say, hey, everybody, come here and take a look at this. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's make sure that we're prepared for this. And by the way, let's go and close that door, right? But I think AI will also be our adversary in this regard too, because you can think, and it's already happening, you've got adversaries who are creating deep fake phishing. They're doing AI-generated malware. They're doing adversarial prompts, especially if you're already using AI and you have exposed it. There's tons of hackathons that are going on right now with regards to, can you break the guardrails within the model and get it to do something that it's not supposed to? But I do think that it will help us in terms of spotting patterns, helping us to be more predictable in terms of what the attack is going to look like and how to respond very quickly. And I think together we can create better intelligent-based systems that not only react, but they learn and they get more predictive in their capabilities and give us a head start versus just waiting for the breach or the attack to happen.
Certainly. And it's certainly a fascinating topic, and and I think very few people appreciate the velocity of change that happens in AI and how our life will be different a year from now, 2 years from now, versus what it is right today.
Well,
And I don't even know if for better or worse, because to your point, it's humans are capable of good and evil, and technology is there only to enable both. So it's a constant struggle. And kind of going back to the top 3 themes, what will be top of mind for a CISO these days, you think?
Well, I'm a bit biased in the concept or the idea of using this new capability that we have, artificial intelligence, to kind of get ahead of the game. But what I think you're going to see is security will move from more reactive to predictive. We want to get away from detect and respond as the default action and kind of get more into predict and prevent. And that's part of some of the technology that I've been seeing is the ability to see actively how an adversary would come through. And then do you have the right mix of people, process, and technology? And if so, how would it work in order to prevent this attack? And the attack simulation is real. It shows exactly how this would take place. And this automated capability can do it for you, to simulate what an attacker would do so that you can actually see it. I think identity becomes the new regulation. Good grief. If there's one thing that keeps everyone up at night, it has to be identity, especially non-human identities. And the fact that we have so many ways to get into an organization today, for example, through third parties. And we know third-party risk management is very difficult. And if you think about it, it's less about, does your third party have a SOC 2? It's more about, do you know how they're coming in? Are you making sure that their access is appropriate? Do you have the appropriate controls in place to detect and respond? Are you doing multi-factor authentication? And so forth. I mean, regardless of who the third party is, the responsibility still comes back to us as leaders to make sure we're doing the right thing and we have the right level of control on our side to make sure that we can protect the organization. I think you're going to see cyber meshes and not castles per se. We need to get away from this whole castle model because it's already absolute or obsolete. Let me say that correctly. And I think what you're going to see is distributed and decentralized architectures with hopefully self-defending APIs. God, please. Encrypted fabrics, data fabrics. And that's really hard today too. And as someone who just went through data encryption, both structured and unstructured, what you want to do is corral all the cats into one area and then inoculate them, which means getting all the data in one place and encrypting it. It's very difficult. And then your CEO goes, okay, I want to take that file with me and I'm going to get on an airplane and go to Korea. Can I do it? Do I have to take the key with me? Are you going to decrypt it before I put it on my laptop? There's all sorts of challenges there. And I think we're going to see multi-cloud systems continue to grow. And one of the hopes, of course, is that the vendors come to the table with even better controls than what they have today. And we're adopting versus spending inordinate amounts of money trying to implement on our own side. But I think what you'll see is security becomes more embedded and not just centralized, God willing.
Interesting. Well, there was a lot to unpack there, but it's certainly rings true that some of those suggestions, some of those advances will probably be coming faster than others. It sounds like a lot of these things, it's almost like a Christmas wish list in terms of APIs and in terms of the ways that AI will enable defenders to repel AI-enabled attackers. And I guess as we coming up on time, Steve. So in the same vein, as you talked about some of these themes, everything is moving so fast, and imagine if, for a second, if you had a crystal ball and you can see into the future very clearly. So 12 months from now, maybe 24 months from now, from your perspective, what are the 2-3 things CISOs will be obsessing about, excited about, concerned about in that time frame?
Well, it certainly is the advent of synthetic digital assistants helping us in our jobs. I think, again, it's going to be less reactive and more predictive. Then it's a matter of, can you actually risk rank these things in such a way that you can go after them rapidly to be able to close doors before the adversary can get in? Mm-hmm. Resilience, to me, is important, but initially it kind of came across as a negative connotation for me, because what it made me think is, well, the business has now assumed that the ability to defend and to push an adversary out is a failed effort. And so we just need to treat it as a DRBCP exercise and figure out how fast we can get back to an operational state. I disagree with that. I think resilience, of course, is important. And you can do things like, immutable backups, for example, segmentation, even putting a firewall in front of it, segmenting it, what have you. There's a number of things that we can do to continue to improve. And there's even things we can do that don't cost money. Another concern would be AI and ML abuse and data poisoning, or what we call poisoning the well, right? I don't have to necessarily hack you to cause you to have business disruption. If I can break into your AI, violate its guardrails, and put data into that ML that LLM that you're using, and then all of a sudden cause problems with your customers to where you lose customers, you lose trust, you have brand damage. Third party and supply chain risk, I was going to touch on this a minute ago. It's not going anywhere. In fact, we're seeing more issues in this area. I'll give you an example, more of a hypothetical. Imagine you're a very large healthcare organization. Let's say you're an $80 to $90 billion healthcare organization. I'm not going to name names. And you decide that you're going to outsource all of your production support to India because it's cheaper labor and it gives you the ability to save some money, right? What you don't realize, or perhaps you do, and you're hoping that the controls are great so that you can mitigate the risk, is humans, especially humans that are perhaps not very rich, maybe even poor, and they're in another country where they're struggling to get by, but they're quite smart, and so they get brought in to do this work for you, from a remote perspective. If I'm an adversary and I have lots of money because I'm doing ransomware all over the globe, It's nothing for me to go to that individual and say, I will give you your entire year's salary right now if you give me your admin creds. And it's game over. And then when you add in the fact that we already have cloud configurations and assets that are invisible that we don't know that are being added because our fundamentals are not where they need to be, now all of a sudden we've got even bigger problems because now the adversary doesn't have to hack in, they log in. And then from the risk management perspective, we're still going to have regulatory overhead and fragmentations. I think last count in January of this year, there were 17 states that had individual data privacy laws. All states have breach notification laws, and none of them are the same. And more states are coming with new requirements. And so the GRC side of this is really getting a bit fragmented. And I have no faith in our federal government coming across with anything like GDPR to at least give us something to, in terms of a standard to adhere to. So that's going to continue to be insane. Now CISO is going to mean Chief Interpretation and Sanity Officer because we got to figure all this stuff out, right? Even PCI came out, with version 4, and that's continuing to evolve. And the patching issues in there really brought front and center the fact that we have to patch very quickly, and you can't wait 90 days and just throw it on the risk register. And lastly, the thing that I think all of us need to be paying very close attention to, and even CSO Magazine has been coming out with articles around this, is burnout. It's very real from my level all the way down. And the one area that I hope artificial intelligence will help us with is, as our synthetic digital assistant, the ability to make sure that the expensive tools that we bought are installed properly and working as designed. That we can have faster, in some cases, automated response to risk where we know the guardrails are solid and we're not going to cause a business disruption. Increasingly important there. What I'd like to see is artificial intelligence help with the lower order work and really take RPA to robotic process automation to a new level. And then eventually it'll help us with the higher order work as well once agentic comes online. And you can do multiple agents for multiple things, again, freeing up the human for more of that divergent thinking, which is getting really creative about how the adversary is going to come at us. And gosh, I could continue to go on in this area, but I think I've covered most of the topics. And what I would end with is, it doesn't get easier. We're going to get better, and our tools are going to get a lot smarter and a lot more capable. Because I've seen it, having talked to some of these startups that are in stealth. And our strategy should shift from fear to foresight, from being reactive to predictive. To where we build the wall before they come across the bridge and attack us, or we put lasers on the heads of the sharks in the moat long before they find us. And hopefully, I guess I go deeper there, but hopefully we're going to get to this sooner rather than later, based upon the technology that's coming. I think the other challenge will be, what tools do you get rid of if you're going to buy new that just because it has AI in it? And how do you make the business case for bringing it in the house and perhaps losing money when you haven't fully depreciated the tools you have, or you've got a lot of sunk capital cost in what you've built? And how do you make the case to finance and to leadership to write that off and then move into something that's even better? Again, back to communication skills.
I hope we didn't just dissuade all the CISOs to be from embarking on this career between the stress and the challenges, but it's continues to be exciting. It's well, again, I think it goes back to your statement that you mentioned. Some of those things, AI needs to be baked in, not bolted on, for some of the solutions. And having just come from RSA, it seems like every cybersecurity vendor, it was zero trust 2 years ago, and now everything is AI. So with kind of varying degrees of how much of it is bolted on versus baked in. So it remains to be seen. But I guess it's up to the CISOs now to make this distinction. What's true, what's just pixie dust.
I will add one quick point, and that is, and I've told my kids this as well, you need to be interacting with some form of artificial intelligence on an almost near daily basis. Stop the death scrolling on TikTok. or anywhere else for that matter, and start looking for education. Figure out a way to use this thing to do something for you, or learn what it can do and what it's capable of, and use it for what it's being designed to be, which is a smarter synthetic human. And if you're not figuring out how to use this thing, at least on the professional level, then you're going to get left behind very quickly, because it's going to come into all of the tools that we use today within our program, all of them. Every company that I've looked at, every startup company that I've talked to, they're all looking for ways to use this new capability and new technology to trying to find ways to help us identify and mitigate or eradicate risk as fast as possible, because they know the adversary is already using it to come after us. So for those of you that are just starting out or wanting to go a little bit further, get yourself a Notebook LM account and play with it. Get yourself a Chat GPT account, play with it. Use Gemini, use Claude, right? Look at the fact that Perplexity is going to be embedded into Apple. Perplexity is going to be embedded into Samsung. Figure out what that means and how the future is going to unfold in front of you, and how to use these new capabilities to make your life easier, where you can be more effective at what you do. Because we are always going to be asked to do more with less. And with the advent of artificial intelligence, I can hear the conversations already. Well, now that you've got that thing in here, why are you not mitigating more risk? Why does the risk register still look the same? Why are you not able to scale and keep up with the business? We constantly have to be on our toes and leveraging technology the best we can. And you can't forget resilience. When the inevitable happens, what's your muscle memory around incident response? And are you ready and protected to recover from an event such that the loss of operational capability, whether it's a product or a service, is minimal?
Absolutely.
And it's possible. We can do this. We're good humans. We can do this.
It's not about how hard it can hit. It's about how hard it can get hit and still get up.
Absolutely.
On that note, Steve, this was awesome and great advice, great perspective. And thank you for sharing your story. This was also fun. We should do it again. And with this in mind, where can people find you? What's the best way to connect?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I always and readily accept connections. Just drop me a note that you saw us here on the podcast and you're curious to connect and learn more. I am more than happy, and I'm famously known for doing this, by the way, of throwing parties. I cook for people. We sit around and talk about war stories and where the industry is going here at the house. So I'm somewhat extroverted, maybe, and very happy to connect with people and share wisdom, because I think that's the one way that we stay ahead of the adversaries and we win this game is we help one another. This is a team sport, and I want to be part of everyone's team.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.